Now I am continuing from the previous lecture, MPEG part 1. So there we have stopped at which level we are going to start our motion prediction and motion compensation was at the macro block layer. So this is an example of a macro block, that is a composition of a 4 is to 2 is to 0 macro block. So you can see that it is a 4 is to 2 is to 0 representation. For example, if you are considering 4 reference of Luma samples, so this is a Luma sample and this star is a chroma sample. So there is only a reference of 2 chroma samples in one row. So that is why 4 is to 2 is to 0. 0 indicates that there is no difference in the chroma samples between the first row and second row. You can see the same chroma sample, it is being shared by the first and the second row of pixel. So this is generally a 4 is to 2 is to 0 representation, and the whole picture, it represents one complete macro block, that is 4 blocks of luminance and 2 blocks of chrominance, one each for CB and CR. So these are going to represent all these 4 blocks, and this is a 4 is to 2 is to 0 macro block. So at this layer we are going to do or start our MPEG compression. So first we know that there are 3 different type of frames: I frame, P frame and B frame. How do you do I frame encoding? We know that it is a interframe encoding. So the same operation like that of JPEG. So we do not compare this I frame with any other frame. So just like how we did the JPEG, the same procedure is employed. It is given to a DCT which convert it into frequency coefficient. Then values are quantized, encoded and transmitted. So in the case of I-frame encoding, there is no other way. That is, we are doing the same procedure as that of JPEG. What is a target frame? Is a frame which is to be encoded. So at the macro block is represented here. So we will be doing here interframe coding. Now coming to our P frame and B frame, there only we are going to actually employ the motion prediction, estimation, etc. So in case of BP pictures, etc., we have to do these principles. Now there will be differences between corresponding zones of consecutive pictures due to the presence of moving objects. So there will be no correlation between the zones. So in case of motion estimation, we have to estimate, we have to do some correlation. That is, we are going to basically define a motion vector which ensure a correlation between an arrival zone on the second picture and a departure zone on the first picture using a technique called as block matching. And this block matching, it is being performed at the macro block level. That is, we have seen macro block level 16 cross 16 pixel. So what do? We have now a current picture. What we are going to do? We are going to compare the current picture macro block with the previous macro block picture. So we are going to compare the two blocks in such a way that we will be having a search window. So we will compare our current picture with all possible macro blocks of the previous. So we will be having a search window, and where we find the maximum correlation, that we are going to find out. And the difference in position of the two matching macro block, it is going to give us a motion vector which will be applied to all the 3 components of the macro block, that is to luminance as well as chrominance component. So what are we going to do? We have got a current frame or a current picture. At the macro block level, we are going to compare it with the macro block of a previous picture. There we are having a small search window, and we will compare it where we are having the difference, and the difference alone we are going to specify it by means of a motion vector. So we can see how this is occurring. So in comparing a P picture and I picture, or two P pictures, due to the distance between the pictures, that is, we have seen in the case of m is equal to 3 and n is equal to 12, obviously this block matching, it is not going to be perfect. Okay, so when we are going to specify the difference as motion vector and all this we are doing what? Estimation. This may not be perfect. So what we have to do is that we have to follow the same procedure again as that of JPEG. So the prediction error between the actual block to be encoded and the matching block. So between our target frame and between our reference frame, we have calculated what will be the difference. This is only a prediction. It may not be perfect. So again we have to encode in a similar way to the blocks of the eye pictures. So again the same procedure is repeated, which is called as motion compensation. So basically we apply the motion prediction at the macro block level, and in most cases this encoding takes place in case of the images with motion. That is when we are seeing two frames. For example, in the last lecture we have seen two frames where only the position of sun was changing. So only in that we are comparing. So the motion prediction is basically used to figure out where the macro block it may be in the next frame. So that is the motion prediction. We are estimating it is not going to be perfect. So again we have to do all these procedures as we have done in the iframes or as we have done in the JPEG. So this is only going to compensate our motion. For example, this is a block diagram for the P frame encoding which is being employed. So target frame, which is a frame which is to be encoded. So for P frame we need to have a reference frame contents also. So we have to compute the difference. So for computing the difference, the macro block, all the values, it should be in pixel values. So the quantized values, as you can see in the figure, it should be dequantized and inverse DCT is applied, then only we will be having the pixel value. So this reference frame and the target frame, we are going to compute the difference, and if there is any difference, that difference we have to specify. Okay, so we are going to do the motion estimation. So we have to calculate the difference computation, which is called as a motion estimation. So where that difference is, how much the object has moved. If there is any difference, all that difference it is going to be specified by this motion vector. So after the difference computation, what we are going to have? We are having a motion vector. This vector is indicating how much the object has moved, or is there any difference while we have computed the difference. So that is specified by the motion vector, and macro block address is a starting address of that particular block. So these alone is now being transmitted. So we are transmitting only lesser values or lesser pixel values. So there is a compression occurred. So we have compared our target frame and the reference frame. Okay, and this is done basically to compare both of the frame contents in pixel value. We should do inverse quantization and IDCT, and then we are computing the difference, and now the motion vector and the macro block address alone it is being transmitted as a encoded bit stream. This is how P frame encoding is being done. So if you are comparing, you can see, say this is our target frame and this is our reference frame. So we are having a target frame and a reference frame. Now we have to calculate the motion vector V. As you can see in the figure, it is being differentially encoded and transmitted, and also the macro block, difference in the macro block between the target frame and the reference frame, that is also being now encoded. It is given to our DCT, quantization, and the same steps as that of the JPEG. So both together, okay, this macro block MD as well as the motion vector V, now it is being encoded and transmitted. As you can see here, the object has actually moved. Again, for B pictures, we know that we are going to use the frames of the preceding as well as succeeding. That is, we are going to calculate the temporal interpolation. So, the result giving the smallest prediction error is retained, and the same procedure as what we have done for B pictures. Only difference is that we will be having two reference frames. That is a preceding reference frame and a succeeding reference frame. So this is going to reduce again the amount of information required. And as the size of the moving object is generally bigger than a macro block, there will be a strong correlation between the motion vectors of consecutive blocks, and a differential coding method can be employed, which will reduce further the number of bits required. And if thus a prediction, that is, we are going to transmit only the difference in case of B pictures also. But if the prediction, it is not going to give a usable result. For example, if we are comparing the two frames and completely everything has gone out of order, that is in the case of a moving camera, completely new zones are appearing, so we cannot predict anything. So in that case, we will go again for intra coding, that is, we will be coding in the same way as that of the iframes. So this is a figure for the B frame encoding. So for computing the difference, we should be having the previous frame as well as the succeeding frame, and the difference must be computed same block as that of the P frame. Only difference is that we are having the succeeding frame contents also. So motion will be estimated, and motion vector and the starting macro block address will be now encoded and transmitted. The only difference is that we have to consider both of these frames. That is, what we will do is usually we have a target micro block, and we have a reference and a succeeding. So from the difference of this target, we have to subtract the mean of these two frame contents. We have to consider both in the case of B frame. That is the only difference. Rest all is same as that of P frame encoding. Now coming to the output bitrate control. That is a bit stream generated by the audio or the video encoder, that is called as our elementary stream. But understand that there are many limitations. Okay, if we have to construct an encoder depending upon what frame we are using, first of all, there may be limitations upon the channel. So we need to maintain a constant bitrate at the output of the encoder. For that, the encoder, we can have a first in first out buffer, and the amount of information in the buffer is monitored and maintained within the predetermined limits by means of a feedback loop modifying the quantization parameters. That is, at the encoder block diagram, we can have a feedback loop with the help of a FIFO buffer, which will help us in maintaining a constant bitrate. In this way, it is possible to obtain a constant bitrate with the resolution which depend upon the picture content. Okay, so when we are seeing, for example, in the case of general block diagram which we have seen earlier, we can have a first in first out buffer. By means of this, we can have the quantization control. Now this procedure is going to give us the constant bitrate from the output of the encoder. How? We have to know this is our first in first out buffer. So we may be having a variable input bitrate. So what we have to do is that we have to increase our quantization threshold or decrease our quantization threshold accordingly. So the first in first out buffer, it can have two level of threshold, either high threshold or a low threshold. Now what happens is that in the first case, if the contents of the buffer, it is falling below a low threshold, that is, if the information which is occurring in the buffer, it is falling at a lower value, then what we can do is that we can decrease the quantization threshold so that more number of bits can be used and this buffer is going to be filled up. More number of bits can be used now to represent each value, and thus FIFO fills up. And in the other condition, if the content of this buffer, it is going to be very large, it is increasing beyond the threshold, then what we have to do? We have to increase the threshold value, quantization threshold value. Then the value, what happens? The buffer, it will be reducing. Okay, so then the quantization threshold is increased in order to reduce the output rate from the encoder. So we can place a first in first out buffer. So this is a general block diagram of the MPEG encoder. A very simple way. This gives only a poor idea of the complexity actually of the MPEG encoding and decoding. So we may be having a picture reordering. That is, we have explained in the last section why a picture reordering may be required, motion compensation or estimation techniques. And now a first in first out buffer, that is placed for bit regulation. It is given to the quantizing side. And these are the several modes for each of the frames. We will be having motion vectors also. So in general, you can represent the MPEG encoder as such. So for the first frame, it will be transmitted like a iframe. Intra-coded will be done. And for the next subsequent frames or for the different modes, we have to compute all these motion vectors. And will be having a memory part also. A memory must be there in the encoder. So this is a very general representation of MPEG encoding. And this is again another general representation for the MPEG decoder, a simple representation. So the decoder, it does not have to perform the operation for motion estimation. So it is a simple technique. So there can be more decoder than the encoder as a circuit is simple. So thus we have seen the encoder and the decoder of MPEG 2. Now in the MPEG 2 there can be several levels. Okay, so usually there can be a low level which correspond to the SIF format, that is SIF format, source intermediate format, which is the half of 4:2:0 format. And then there is a main level which correspond to the 4:2:0 format and such resolution, and high level aims at HDTV, and there is an optimized high level for widescreen HDTV. Thus you can have several levels and also several profile. In simple profile we consider only the I and P frames, we do not consider B frames. And the main profile, that is one which we commonly use, that is I, P and B frames, but it leads to a more complex encoding and decoding. And in the hierarchy coding or little more scalable profile which is intended for future use, they allow for extra information or supplementary information which allows the picture characteristic to be enhanced, that is in the either in the SD or HD version, and a little more higher profile that is intended only for HDTV applications, either in 4:2:0 or 4:2:2 format. Then if you are looking at again the block diagram of MPEG 4 audio video encoding, we will now see a very simple form of encoder block diagram for the MPEG 4. That is only in the case of simple profile. So after the MPEG 2, MPEG 4 is being considered because it is increasing a compression efficiency over MPEG 2 of at least 50%. So this is a very simple block diagram of the MPEG 4, where basically we have not considered of the B frames, that is this is a simple profile video encoding. So it is actually similar to that of the MPEG 2 video compression encoding. The only difference which you can find here is that here the motion data and the texture data, that is our motion vector and the information of the macro block, it is being separately received from the encoder. That is only the difference. So here VOP indicates our video of preference. So which video we are preferring or which frame we are preferring, and the input will be in the YUV format, that is the luminance and the chrominance format. Then motion estimation, motion compensation, all these steps are one and the same, and there will be a first in first out buffer for controlling the bit stream rate. Only difference is that instead of transmitting both the motion vector and the texture data, that is our macro block data, together encoded as single, we are having separately the transmission of both. So the first step, we have to decide about the type of frame, whether I frame or P frame. Since it is a simplex profile, we have not considered the B frame. So same procedure, okay. So in the case of P frame, motion vector we have to estimate, then we have to do motion compensation, and we have to further do DCT, variable length encoding, Huffman encoding. All those things are same as that of the initial compression. Again, we can use a buffer for adjusting the bit rate. And in the decoding also, separately we have received the output from the encoder for the motion data and for the texture data, and you can see the decoding part. Okay, so it is a simple type of decoder which gives the YUV video output. So it consists of on bit stream passing. Separately we are seeing for both the motion and vector and the data from the macro block. So motion substream, it describes a motion movement vector of the macro block, and the decoding process copies the corresponding portion of the reference frame to the actual frame, and the texture substream, it holds the data that describe the macro block completely in case of I frame, or the pixel difference of the moved macro block in the case of P and B frame. It is same as that of the MPEG 2 video decoding. Okay. Only difference is separately we are considering in the encoder of the motion data and the texture data. So the input will always be in the YUV format. We have to take our video of preference. This is almost same as that of the MPEG 2 only because it is a simple type of profile, and even we do not consider here the B frames. So in this section basically we have discussed about the MPEG encoding and the decoding process.